This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys Network. Here's your host, Will Hill.
Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys. Coming up on the show, Iain MacMillan of the Bacon Bets podcast, Sports Illustrated Betting, will join us. We will go over the tournament. March Madness is here. By the time you're listening to this, we are 1 day away from the tournament beginning. And I still count Thursday at noon is when the tournament starts. Tuesday's playing games. Those are going on right now as we speak. Wednesday are playing games. Thursday is when the tournament begins. And we will talk to Iain about that, get his picks, upsets, brackets. Excited to talk to Iain. And I do sort of miss. Now I'll always take having more games and having the extra games to watch to bet as opposed to not having them. The Tuesday having the two, Wednesday having the two. But there was something too. It's almost like going to a restaurant and having a 30, 40-minute wait. You don't want the wait, but there's something just special about finally getting your table. The anticipation and having to wait. It's the same thing with the NCAA tournament where it used to be, I think 2001 or two, early 2000s is when they first came up with these first four games. I remember being in high school. But it used to be just wait 3 days. Monday, you get the bracket Sunday, you have all that college basketball with the conference tournaments, and you'd wait and you would not have anything those 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It was the longest 3 days you can imagine. Then Thursday at noon was just the most exciting thing. Now it's I guess you could call these two games, these 2 days with the playing games, the 4 playing games, the appetizers, and then you get the entree on Thursday. But some say it's the best 4 days in the year once this tournament starts on Thursday, and can't argue, man. It's such a great time of the year. Love it. I'll get to my brackets, my picks, and I'll just start. I'll start with some of these against the spread. Again, did the show Monday, recorded it Sunday night. Didn't really have time to digest, and I really think, there's too much, especially some of these shows, these ESPN shows. The bracket comes out, people want to spit out their picks. Oh, they got this in the Final Four, that in the Final Four. You need to let it breathe. You need to let it digest a little bit, and you feel better about your picks. Not that it means they're going to be right or wrong or anything, but just too much of a rush to get these picks in, just in general. But having some time to dive into it, I will just start with a couple. For some reason, I don't have these in Connecticut, but I've seen these at other books. Conference tournament win. So you can bet the Big Ten over under 11 and a half wins combined in the tournament. Trip Tepper, friend of the show, sent this in. I like the under. I'm not sold on any of these Big Ten teams. And I saw ACC is over 6.5. To me, Duke's good for 3 or 4, maybe more. Then you get to the Clemson, the Louisville's, North Carolina is playing as we speak. I think 7 is very doable. So those are two I like. Kind of gives you an action on a bunch of different games, a bunch of different teams. Those are fun ones to root throughout the tournament. But those are ones that jumped out to me, and I'll get to my bracket here in a second. But just against the spread, I mentioned I like UC San Diego the other night. I feel even better about that. Doesn't mean it's going to win or lose, but I push back on this idea that, well, it's too trendy, so now it's not going to win. I remember a couple years ago, everyone liked Furman over Virginia. That got home. Last year, everyone liked James Madison over Wisconsin, or a lot of people did. That got home. You can really put yourself in a pretzel mentally with trying to figure out, oh, well, this person likes that, or too many people like this. That's a very dangerous way to handicap these games. I think Michigan turns it over a lot. UC San Diego forces turnovers. And you could call UC San Diego a small team because their bigs are not big, and Michigan's got 2 7-footers. UC San Diego's guys are all 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", so their guards are very big. They're very big position to position, and they're smart. They take care of the ball. They play good defense. I like UC San Diego to win, and I have them making a run. But before I get to that, some of these other picks, some of these games I like against the spread, I can't lay 4.5 with UConn. I know this is one of those games you're going to feel dumb either way. I mentioned that on Monday, where you pick Oklahoma and UConn blows them out. You say, man, why would I go against UConn and Hurley? It's March. They know what they're doing come March. Good tournament team, good tournament coach. This is not, for anyone that's watched UConn, this is not the same, nowhere near the same UConn team. They have so many issues defensively, fouling, not forcing turnovers. They can't protect the rim. They don't have a Sanogo or Klingon this year, nothing close. Now, they might get some good looks on Oklahoma on offense. I think their path to offense is there. So maybe you're taking over there, but I will take the 4.5 with Oklahoma. I think this is a coin flip game. I think you're paying a major tax on the brand, the uniform, the everything here with UConn Hurley. I just think this line is inflated because of UConn's past success. So I like Oklahoma here to cover that 4.5. A game I mentioned the other night too, Grand Canyon getting 10.5. That's too many. Opened 11.5. That was obviously too many, at least according to the market. Went down to 9.5, back up to 10.5. I just think they're big. They've got experience from winning last year, and they draw a ton of fouls. They're one of the, I think, seventh best team in the country in terms of getting to the line. And Maryland, what do we know about them? They lack depth. They once you get past the first five guys, they're in a lot of issue because they don't play anybody other than those five. So if you can foul those guys out or get those guys into foul trouble, and Grand Canyon can test that depth, that's a major issue. Now you never Grand Canyon plays fast. You don't like you always hear the expression upsets happen in the 50s and 60s. They don't happen in the 70s or 80s. Upsets usually happen when the underdog can slow the pace, slow the tempo. They're undermanned. They have the less talent. You can reduce the game. That's usually when upsets happen. So I don't like Canyon to pull the upset, but I do think them getting the points is a good look. I also like Yale getting the 7.5 against A&M. That is an A&M team that just can't shoot, and Yale is pretty solid on the glass as long as they can keep A&M. And A&M is a relentless offensive rebounding team. If you can keep A&M off the glass and make them be one and done, and you can make some shots on the other end, it could be a long night because A&M is a dreadful, dreadful shooting team. It's almost like if you watch them, it's almost like they miss on purpose just so they can get an offensive rebound and try again. It is really a painful watch. And Yale has had a habit of getting in this tournament and making noise. They beat Baylor in 2016. They haven't been here a lot and hadn't been to the tournament since 2016, or until 2016, I should say. 2016 was their first appearance. They get there, their first game ever. They beat Baylor in a big upset. Sizable upset. I forget what the line on that game was, but 6-7. It wasn't crazy, but it was an upset. Last year, they beat Auburn. They were competitive with Duke in that round of 32 game the year after they beat Baylor. I know San Diego State destroyed them last year, but that's a good coach in Jones. They know what they're doing. Obviously, it's a smart team. Boy, how fun would that be to have a UC San Diego Yale round of 32 match with a right to go to the 16, that Sweet 16? That would be a lot of fun. Uh, so I like Yale. I like Grand Canyon. I like UC San Diego. Another game I like, not a, and this is I think the only total I like. Arizona Akron. Arizona might score 100 points. All Akron wants to do is go up and down the court and shoot threes. Arizona's happy to comply and run. I could see Arizona scoring 95, 100 points. I would actually look towards the over. I know it's a high total, over 166.5. That is one I like there. And Houston versus SIU Edwardsville. That is going to be ugly. I will go SIU Edwardsville. Team total under. I like this because last year, I think it's a very similar handicap. Last year, Longwood played Houston in the first round. Longwood had 16 points in the first half. I think you could see a similar scenario where Houston just puts the clamps down. The SIU Edwardsville is a brutal, brutal offensive team. They're one of the worst teams. I may say they're one of the worst teams in the tournament. They're a 16 seed. Some of their losses are really concerning when you look at their body of work, and their team total is 48.5 at DraftKings, and their first half total is 21.5. It's low. I don't think it's low enough. I think they've got like same thing as last year, along with at 16. I don't know, 17, 18 points at half. I think this is a complete mismatch. I'd actually look towards laying Houston, and another one I'd actually look towards laying the Florida with the 28.5. Again, it's a lot of points. It's probably not enough. Norfolk doesn't show anything based on their resume, based on their makeup of their team where they can compete. I think Florida wins that game by 30, 40 points. Sometimes there's value on these big, big favorites in the first round. I remember last year, UConn Stetson was like 27, and man, that looked a little light. And you know what? It was like UConn destroyed them. They had that number covered by halftime, and they didn't really take the foot off the gas in the second half, ended up winning by 40 plus points. So those are the picks. UC San Diego, Canyon, Grand Canyon, Yale, Oklahoma, over 166.5, Arizona, and Akron, and then SIU Edwardsville under 21.5 for the first half are the plays. Time to get to the bracket before we get to Ian. I'm not going to go through every round, every pick would be tedious. I'll just cut it down to my Elite Eight, and I'll give you my Final Four and my champ. The Elite Eight, I have Duke and St. Mary's, with Duke coming out of that region and going to the Final Four. I have Houston and Illinois. Illinois is a team. Ian Eagle mentioned them when he was on last week. They have a lot of talent. Middle of the season, they were fifth or sixth favorite to win the whole thing. They've had a lot go against them. I like this Illinois team. I think they can make a run. They can also lose by 20 in the first round. I understand that. They're very Jekyll and Hyde. So I will go Houston and Illinois in that bracket. And the reason I like St. Mary's, go back to that one. They game the math so well. I'm worried about Bama in the second round potential matchup because Bama, their athleticism could be an issue. but they game the math in terms of offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds. They turn you over while not turning you over. They just get so many extra possessions that I think they're a dangerous team. So Duke, St. Mary's, Houston, and Illinois, my Elite Eight, half of my Elite Eight. Then I have more chalk, Florida and Texas Tech. And then I have my one sleeper, my one long shot to come out of their region, though my one Final Four sleeper. I have UC San Diego beating Iowa State in the Elite Eight and UC San Diego in the Final Four, along with the 3-1 seeds, Florida, Houston, and Duke. So I tried to do a blend. I feel like the tournament is like this more often than not. Last year's a perfect example. It's a beautiful blend of chalk and complete madness where hey, UConn and Purdue, the two best teams in the country. Who's shocked that these teams are playing? Chalk, the best teams, what we'd expect. And you also have NC State, where nobody would have picked that. And then you have, a really good Bama team last year, which wasn't a shocker, wasn't a one seed, but wasn't a shocker by any means. So there's usually a blend of complete craziness and then some stability where some teams you'd expect at the top. And that's where I'm going with here with the 3-1s. It is a chalky year. You just see a lot of people's brackets. They got a lot of ones, a lot of twos, and you say, man, you're just going to pick all the ones. No, but it is hard to see past Duke, Houston, Florida, and Auburn. I mean, we talked for weeks now about those four teams can win it, and everyone after that, maybe Texas Tech, everyone after that is kind of a stretch. There is a gap between the first 4 or 5 teams and everybody else. So I understand the chalk. So I went with a lot of chalk, 3-1s, but I did have the UC San Diego wrinkle in there. Maybe they can win and draw Yale in the second round. Then you're in the Sweet 16, and who knows? And maybe you get a break. Louisville, Auburn in the second round is not a layup. Creighton, Auburn in the second round is a layup. And who knows? And Creighton, Auburn could be a difficult matchup. And who knows? Maybe you get to a Sweet 16, and maybe by some miracle Auburn isn't there, and then you're really, really cooking. It happened with Florida Atlantic a couple years ago, where you think, all right, you got to beat Memphis, then you got to beat Purdue. Purdue's a 1 seed. Well, I know it's an extreme example, but Purdue obviously lost to Fairleigh Dickinson, and then that path looked a lot different. That path went from being Memphis, which was a toss-up game, to then instead of being a 7-8 point dog to Purdue, they were like a 15-point favorite to Fairleigh Dickinson. So these paths can change quickly with an upset here or there. So UC San Diego in the 3-1s. I'm not going to go too crazy. I do have Duke over Florida in the title game. I just think Duke's got the best team. Their depth was on full display this past weekend. When they lost Flag, they lost the other starter, Brown, and they still beat a really good Louisville team by double digits. I just think this team is loaded. You're going to add Flag back in the mix. Sounds like he'll be all right if you just read between the lines. Now, maybe if you're dealing with a gimpy Flag, maybe this is just a bad pick, and it's going to be hard to win with Flag less than 100%. I understand that, but I am banking, obviously, with this selection on Flag coming back and Flag being okay. And boy, Duke, Florida would be a hell of a title game. So that is the pick, Duke over Florida to cut down the nets. Do have the sleeper mixed in with the Tritons of UC San Diego. So I will be a huge Triton fan from now until the time, let's say until the time they're eliminated. But hopefully that's not for a couple of weeks now. Hopefully they can make the trip all the way to the Final Four. That would be awesome. It'd be fun to see. And I do think they are live. I think they're a really, really good team. St. Mary's is a sleeper in the Elite Eight. Illinois is a sleeper in the Elite Eight. Excited to watch these games. They start at noon on Thursday, and once they start, it's a lot of basketball. It's not quite the volume of conference tournament week, but hey, it's March Madness. It's the real thing. It's win or go home. It's the drama. It's the upsets. It's the buzzer beaters. There is nothing better than this tournament. It is a great tournament, a great product. College basketball is not as big as it used to be. You don't get the stars. These kids come and they go, and there's transfer portals, and but by the time you get to know them, they're already in the NBA or somewhere else. So it's not, you don't have the same continuity. There's not the same sort of water cooler appeal that this sport, I shouldn't say this tournament is as good as ever. The sport in general is not as popular as it was in the 90s, early 2000s, but man, what a great tournament. This tournament is second to none. It's the best. It really is the best. I'm so excited for it to get going and excited to talk to Iain MacMillan of SI Betting. That is next. This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back. Shoulda Bet More. You can catch him SI Betting, the Bacon Bets podcast, which I recommend everyone check out. It is our buddy Iain MacMillan. Iain, happy March, man. How's it going?
Happy March. It is one of the best times of the year, probably second. Is first week of March Madness the second best sporting event of the year? Is it week 1 NFL number 1 and then first week of March Madness number 2?
It's a great question. I've been thinking about this a lot, and as someone who loves these conference tournaments more and more, and just the sheer volume of the action, it's maybe cheating to lump it all together with
Mm,
that. I mean, that last Wednesday, Thursday, I mean, you're talking games on, you look at it like 9, 10 o'clock at night on the East Coast, and there's still like 15, 20 games to tip off.
yeah.
The sheer volume of conference week is almost as good as the first 4 days of the NCAA tournament. So if you lump it all together just for the sheer like volume, I would say this 2, 3 weeks is the best. And you combine it with some personal stuff. I think you're on the East Coast too. Stays lighter a little later. It's getting a little warmer. There are a lot of things like I
Mm,
compare it to like you break the press of February, like the full court press of it's dark, it's cold, there's no football, there's no
yep.
March Madness. But once you get through it and you got conference tournaments on all day at night, selection Sunday, into baseball, into warmer weather, eventually NBA playoffs, and then you look up and NFL's not that far away. I love this time of year. It's absolutely incredible.
Great point. It does coincide with spring coming out, warmer weather, sun, lighter later. It is, yeah, that's a great point. That adds to it for sure.
That first time you look up at the outside or whatever, and it's like 6:37 and it's not pitch black, it's actually
Yeah.
light out. It is very refreshing. It's amazing what that can do for your mood. But enough of that. We got basketball games to discuss. These Wednesday playing games. Xavier now up to a 3.5 point favorite in some spots. I'm looking 2.5 on DraftKings. It did get to 3.5 yesterday. Xavier's taking money. They're playing close to home. They're laying a few points here. Totals 149.5. Do you have anything on this game?
Yeah, I took the points with Texas in this one. I actually think Xavier, Texas, I think these two teams are similar in a lot of different ways. I do think Texas is a little bit of a better shooting team, Xavier a little bit better defensively. But what I think is going to be the difference maker in this one is Texas is going to be able to kind of attack the interior of the Xavier defense. Xavier is a very good perimeter defense. Their interior defense is not great. 52.3% of the points scored against them come from 2-point range. That's 289th in the country. So I really do, and obviously Texas stronger schedule that they face this season. So some of the stat, and whenever you look at the stats for any tournament game, you do have to kind of consider what competition they face that led to these stats. So similar stats, but against stronger competition in the SEC. That's good. That's going to make me lean towards taking the points with Texas.
How about the other one? American laying a similar number here, 2.5 point favorite, a low total, 129.5 against Mount St. Mary's, the MAC champion. They were the 6th seed in the Metro Atlantic. Anything here for you in this one?
Yeah, this is going to be the ugliest game of the entire tournament. Low total, don't care. Give me the under. It's very slow pace. American play is 359th in pace of play, so fourth slowest pace of play in the country. Neither team is good offensively. They're decent defensively. There's a stat that I like called floor percentage that I look at when trying to bet totals. It's the percentage of a team's possessions that result in at least 1 point being scored. So that would obviously be like if a player gets fouled and they just make one of the free throws. These two teams 260th and 302nd in floor percentage. So very low percentage of their possessions result in a point being scored. Slow pace, terrible offenses. I know it's a low total, but I'm not scared of it. I'm taking the under in that one. That is going to be an ugly game to watch.
Before we get to some of your games you like for the tournament in your bracket, any issues with the tournament, with the committee, any grievances you want to do? Do you have a problem with North Carolina getting in, Indiana left out, West Virginia left out? Take it whatever direction you'd like.
Yeah, I think the obvious one is UNC probably didn't deserve to be in the tournament. West Virginia not getting in the tournament might have been the biggest travesty that we've seen in the selection process over the past number of years, at least in my memory. Like, there's always a couple of teams that you can make the argument for. I don't know how you make the argument for West Virginia not being in the tournament. But I'm going to say something that other people haven't been saying, but it's a take that I truly believe now. They give way too many bids to the Mountain West. Screw the Mountain West. The Mountain West stinks. Every single year, people are like, watch out for the Mountain West. They're going to be the dark horses of this tournament. And then every single year, except for 2 years ago, the one year San Diego State went on the run to the final, except for San Diego State that year, every single Mountain West team loses in the first round. If they win one game, they lose the second round. But yet every single year, they get like 4 bids.
No, I completely agree. I think it's a good point. And look, I echo everything you say. West Virginia getting left out is insane. I know the governor's trying to sue now. Good luck with that. It's not going to go anywhere, but absolutely crazy. Let's get into the bets you like, because one of the games you have here, I'm just so confused by. I think it's a really good high level first round game. A couple of these games are that you like. BYU laying 3.5 to VCU. Now, they're playing in altitude. VCU had played 3 games in 3 days. They have a quick turnaround now, then they're playing in Denver. BYU's more accustomed to the altitude than VCU. But I worry from a BYU perspective. First of all, I have a hard time getting that Duquesne game in the first round out of my head. Maybe that's a bias I have. I just feel like BYU is a finesse offense, a lot of cutting, a lot of motion, and VCU is so big and physical and long. I wonder if they can disrupt that. So I'm back and forth on this. I think this is like a Sweet 16 level game. These are two of maybe the 20, 30 best teams in the country squaring off in the first round. But who do you like here and why?
Yeah, this is a shame that that these two teams play against each other, because I think both of them are teams that people would have liked to see win a couple games and be in a couple games and maybe go on a run, and then one of them obviously going to immediately lose in the first round here. But I am going to take the points with VCU in this one. I think what it comes down for me is 3-point shooting. Both teams shoot the 3-point a lot. They're 15th and 27th in 3-point shot rate, but VCU defends the 3-point shot way better. 23rd in opponent 3-point field goal percentage. BYU 243rd in opponent 3-point field goal percentage. So they've struggled to defend the perimeter this season. VCU has not. Also, VCU creates a ton of extra scoring chances, which is a stat I look at quite a bit when trying to handicap the tournament. You create those chances either by forcing turnovers or by grabbing offensive rebounds. 11th in the country in extra scoring chances per game, plus 5.6. So I think they can force some turnovers, they can get some extra scoring chances, and I think they can defend the perimeter. But anytime we have kind of like, a great offensive team against a great defensive team, I'm generally going to lean towards the defensive team.
Another really high-level first-round matchup is Creighton and Louisville. Louisville playing close to home here. They're laying 2.5, depending on where you shop. Do you have anything here, side or total?
Yeah, I like the over in this one. And it's also, I believe, the very first game on Thursday. So why not? Let's just start the tournament off, bet the over, and root for points the first game of Thursday's slate. Another game between two teams who shoot the 3-ball a lot. And if two teams who shoot the 3-ball a lot can get hot from 3, then that's obviously going to be a quick way to cash the over. And both teams outside of the top 100 in defending the 3-point shot. So and Louisville also, I think, 60th in the country in pace of play, so they should be able to push Creighton a little bit here. I think we're going to see a ton of points, as long as they don't get cold from 3. That's always kind of the risk when you place these bets on 3-point shooting teams. But I think we're going to see a lot of 3s, and like I said, it's a fun way to root for the first game of the tournament.
Yeah, and you always wonder, like, they're playing on these neutral courts, gyms they're not familiar with, venues they're not familiar with, the shooting background, that kind of thing. But your handicap makes a lot of sense, looking at like 144, 144.5, depending on what book. And that one, do you have any field side total for that one?
For Louisville Creighton?
Yeah.
It's for the side, I've gone back and forth. I think I'm going to lean Louisville. Creighton, I brought up the stat earlier, extra scoring chances per game. Creighton's like 5th last in the country, like 360th in that. They don't grab offensive rebounds and they don't force turnovers. And anytime it's a close game against another team who's kind of solid in those areas, you better shoot the lights out, because if you don't, you're giving up possessions every single game. So because of that, I'll lean Louisville, but I certainly like the total a little bit better.
Do you think whoever wins is live against Auburn?
No, I don't. I think there's a narrative going around Auburn has stumbled into the tournament, which, to be fair, they have. But also they're in the SEC. It's late in the season. I get it. I'm not judging Auburn for kind of how their season ended. I still think they are part of that group that is a step above the rest in this tournament. So no, I'm not. I don't. I mean, anything could happen, obviously, but I will not be betting against Auburn in the second round.
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree with most of that. It's just, man, that's as the number 1 overall seed, the committee did not do them a ton of favors. Where you might have to play Louisville close to home for Louisville, and
That's
Creighton.
right.
I mean, those are 2 good teams. That is not a layup. Either way, a game that fascinates me. UC San Diego is now getting 2.5 against Michigan. You're going to hear all week that it's too trendy to pick UC San Diego. I push back on that. I feel I said this on one of the other shows where it's almost too trendy to say it's too trendy
Right.
to say it's UC San Diego. You could twist yourself into a pretzel with all this sort of thought process of, oh, too many people like UC San Diego, so it can't win. I remember 2 years ago, everyone liked Furman over Virginia. And you know what? Furman beat Virginia. So sometimes these ones that everyone like get home. That being said, you have a play on this game.
Yeah, you mentioned Furman over Virginia 2 years ago. Last year, it was James Madison over Wisconsin was the trendy
Good
pick.
point.
And they ended up winning. So, yeah, this is 2 years in a row now. Don't be scared of the trendy pick. And listen, I have probably watched more UC San Diego than the large majority of college basketball fans because I'm a UC Irvine fan. So I've watched a lot of Big West. They beat my UC Irvine Anteaters in the final of the Big West. This is an extremely good team. They are a trendy pick for good reason. They shoot the three ball really well. They defend really well. I keep mentioning extra scoring chances per game. I think they're like seventh in the country in extra scoring chances per game. They grab offensive boards. And the main thing for this matchup against Michigan, they force a ton of turnovers, and that's Michigan's biggest weakness. That's what's hurt them all season. I think they're outside the top 300 in the country in turnover rate. So bad stylistic matchup for Michigan. And also we do kind of see, we've seen this happen in the past where, I mean, I know Michigan was a somewhat top seed in the Big Ten tournament, but I don't think a lot of people were picking them to win that tournament. And sometimes when a team does that, they kind of win a conference tournament unexpectedly. They get off to a slow start in the NCAA tournament. And I think that might be what we see here. Yeah, I know it's trendy, but I think it's trendy for good reason.
In another situation where they're playing in altitude on a Thursday, and Michigan just came off 3 games in 3 days. That's not the easiest spot here for Michigan. So I'm with you, and I have UC San Diego going pretty deep into this tournament. By the way, I was watching the game Saturday night too. You guys are up 10. Irvine was up, I think, 10 or so late first half. I said, man, UC San Diego, it's going to be a long day on Selection Sunday. And according to Lenardi, they were not getting in if they won. Did you feel good where you were up 10 or so in that first half, or you kind of had your guard up?
No, I bet on UC San Diego. Unfortunately, it's UC Irvine's a very, very good team, but where they struggle, UC San Diego thrives. Like UC Irvine's is a very good team at defending 2-point shots, one of the best interior defenses in the country, but they can't defend the three, and that's what UC San Diego does, is shoot threes. So I was not confident at any point in that game. That's surprising that you said that UC San Diego wouldn't have got in if they lost that final. I thought they would have. So
that's what Lenardi said. Lenardi said they absolutely had to win to get in. Doesn't mean he's 100% right or anything, but he was pretty I mean, if you look, I know they've killed these teams in the net rating and all that stuff. They don't have the quad one wins, which look, kind of a moving target for the committee. Carolina didn't have the quad one wins. They still put them in, so they kind of pick and choose their criteria. But who knows? And we'll never know. We'll never know with the VCUs, the Drakes, the UC San Diegos. These teams sort of eliminated the fun, the drama of Selection Sunday, where they won and they took care of business, so we didn't have to sit here and debate these sort of things.
We'll give the Mountain West 4 seeds. That's crazy. UC Irvine beat a Mountain West team last year. I forget who it was, but like the Mountain, I mean, I'm so anti Mountain West. It's insane.
Maryland's laying 10.5 now to Grand Canyon. Maryland, obviously, they play the 5 guys who are outstanding. They don't have much depth behind that. They don't really have any depth behind that. I'd worry from Maryland's perspective that Grand Canyon gets to the line a lot, and that could keep them in this game. Now, Grand Canyon plays an up-tempo pace. Usually, upsets don't happen in the 70s and 80s. If you want to pull an upset, you do it in the 50s and the 60s, and you slow the pace. So I don't know that Grand Canyon is going to win this game. They did win a game last year. Do you have any interest in taking or laying the points here?
I'm laying the points. I love Maryland in this tournament. If we're going to talk bracket here in a little bit, I'll bring up Maryland again. But yeah, you're right. Not super deep, but I mean, that starting 5, I think, can compete with any starting 5 in the country right now. They do everything well. They don't have a weak point. They can shoot. Jacoby Gillespie, 41.2% from beyond the arc. They can defend down low. Derek Queen, a great center, one of the better centers in the Big Ten this season. They can create those extra scoring chances through offensive rebounding and a little bit of forcing turnovers. They can do everything. They can defend the 3. They can defend the interior. They can attack teams in multiple different areas. I like Maryland a ton in this tournament and in this game. Grand Canyon is they kind of attack. Most of their shots are in 2-point range, and I just don't think they can do that against this Maryland starting 5. So I'm out on Grand Canyon. I will lay the points to Maryland.
All right, your bracket. Let's hear it. What did you go here for? I don't know. Do you have it in front of you? You want Elite 8, Final 4, whatever you want to do?
Yeah, I have it in front of me. Yeah, we can do Elite 8. I will say, and a lot of people have been saying this for this season, and I agree with them. This is a chalky bracket this year. I do think the top portion of teams are a step above the rest. I'm actually going to make a quick change. So here's my I hate being chalky. I hate being Mr. Chalk, but I would rather be chalky and right than not chalky and wrong. What region is it? South region. I got Auburn over Michigan State in the Elite 8. That's a 1/2. I like UC San Diego to maybe win a couple of games, but eventually they're gonna run into Auburn, and that's just too much for them to handle. Out of the West, that's kind of where I think is I have a couple upsets happening. I know Florida just won the SEC. They're going to kind of the hot pick to win it all right now. But I just talked about how much I liked Maryland. So I did put an upset there, Maryland to take out Florida in the Sweet 16. I got Maryland over Missouri in the Elite Eight in that bracket. I'm out on St. John's. I know St. John's tore through the Big East. They won the Big East tournament. They're like 240th in effective field goal percentage. They can't shoot. If they run into a team that can figure out their defense and score, I don't think they have the offense to keep pace. I think Missouri beats St. John's, which I know sounds crazy, but this is the West is kind of my upset region. So I got Maryland beating Missouri in the Elite Eight to advance to the Final Four. In the Midwest, I got Houston to beat Kentucky in the Elite Eight, and then in the East, I got Duke over Alabama, another 1v2. So pretty chalky Elite Eight for me outside of Maryland over Missouri. And then the Final Four, I do have Maryland beating Auburn to advance to the final, Houston beating Duke, and then Houston finally getting over the hump, beating Maryland in the national championship.
Wow, it's interesting. I thought about going with Maryland too. I really, that was one that I kind of had. You do it online and you just kind of go back. No, I'm not going to go through that. So you got 3-1s in Maryland. So you got 3-1s in the four. That's not overly chalky. And like you said, a lot of people I know is Jay Billis. I think Jay Williams on that bracket show on Sunday. Making the point, or I think they both picked all one seeds. So it is kind of one of those.
I think Jay Billis had all 1s and 2s in the Elite Eight.
Yes, and I think Williams might have too. Which, by the way, we don't really need that right after the selection comes out. We don't need to see people's Sunday night's about digesting the bracket, kind of what did the committee do right, what did the committee do wrong, who are the upset picks, and then move on. We don't need to see your Final Four. Nobody's ready to pick their Final Four on Sunday. It's too early for that stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's on upset alert in the first round? Do you have a shocker? And I'll qualify that. I guess you can count a 13, but I'm really looking. Can any 14, 15? I don't think any of us think a 16 seed is going to win, but any 14, 15, I guess you could throw a 13 seed in there that you think can win.
So there's one 14 seed. Now, in my bracket, I don't have this happening in my bracket, but I might place a money line bet on this 14 seed. It is Troy to beat Kentucky. Now, when I'm looking at a deep seed to win a game in the first round, there's two things that I would look for. One is that they are a 3-point shooting team because it's like what we saw with Oakland against Kentucky last year. It's what we saw with Princeton a few years ago. If a team can shoot threes, they're going to be live for any upset because if they get hot from beyond the arc, it's hard for any team to kind of keep pace. Troy shoots threes. I think they're around 50th in the country in 3-point shot rate, and they create those extra scoring chances that I talked about before. So Troy is not a team I've heard anyone else talk about. And also, I know that Cal's obviously not in Kentucky anymore, but maybe it wasn't a Cal issue. Maybe Kentucky just has a program issue where they choke in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It's possible. We've certainly seen it multiple times before. So Troy's not a team a lot of people are talking about. I think I'm going to be placing a money line bet on Troy, a 14 seed to upset the 3 seed.
Yeah, and it's not like Pope, who was at BYU. It's not like he's been some tournament wizard either. He's had his fair share of tournament failures too, and it would be kind of funny, kind of ironic if Kentucky, after all this of it's all Calipari's fault, we lose in the first round, they bring in a new coach and they get upset again. It would be kind of ironic. Any game you really struggled with? I'll ask it this way. Any team that you almost had going far that you kind of wanted to make a run as a Cinderella, but you couldn't just quite pull the trigger?
Ooh, good question. Let me take a quick look here. I kind of wanted to take VCU. We talked about VCU a little bit earlier to go on a little bit of a deep run. But that's tough. I don't know if they can get past Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's being a little bit underrated heading into this tournament. And even if they do, then they got Alabama in the next round. So maybe VCU might be that team, but not necessarily, man. I told you this. I truly think this is might be the chalkiest bracket I've seen in the past 10 years in terms of I don't really see a low seed going on a Cinderella run. I think the 1s are a step above the rest. The 2s are then in a tier of their own, and then some 3s and 4s that are extremely good as well. So, no, do you have one in mind?
A team that I couldn't quite get to?
Yeah.
I had St. Mary's going to the Elite Eight. I couldn't quite get into the Final Four over Duke, but I liked them. I had a chalky bracket, and then I was like, I can't do this. I can't go chalky. Even not that I'd rather be wrong than chalky, but I don't know. It just feels like it never works out where it's that chalky. Sometimes when the dust settles, it's chalk. It's UConn versus Purdue, but you do have some madness usually along the way. So I tried to balance it of chalk. Like I've got 3 1 seeds in the Final Four, but I also have UC San Diego in the Final Four. So I tried to balance like, all right, this is absolutely insane with, all right, this is what's supposed to happen, which I think is usually sort of a blend of what we get in this tournament.
Yeah, so I think for me, the team I couldn't quite get there with was VCU.
All right, Ian, this was fun, man. Appreciate it. Any football bets you made? Any takes from free agency? Any team you got your eye on for next year?
No, none. The Falcons.
Atlanta Falcons. You heard it here first. Super Bowl champions for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get into the free agency. That's just thought I made this point in the pod last week. It's like every time I look at my phone, it's like some dude I never heard about or don't care about switching teams. It's hard in March when you're immersed in the college basketball, these kind of minor moves that don't really move the needle. Didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, I need the draft to happen, and then because there's usually a couple moves that happen in the draft, the dust to settle, and then early May I'll have some football takes, but right now it's golf and college basketball.
All right, Ian, appreciate the time, man. Where can we find you? Bacon Bets, SI betting. What else we got?
Yep, Bacon Bets podcast. Follow me on X at Iain MacBets, IAIN MacBets, and you can find all my written work over at si.com/betting. Thanks for having me on, Will. I appreciate
the time. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks to Iain MacMillan. Rate, review, subscribe. Gold Boys Discord. Check it out there, goldboys.com. Appreciate you guys listening. Enjoy the madness. Be back Friday. We will have a day in the books. See you then.